So this is him technically making the announcement. Let's listen to Cornel.
We need you to be part and parcel of wrestling with this corporate duopoly, this two-party system that impedes, it gets in the way of the unleashing of the kind of policies of abolishing poverty and homelessness, of dealing with working wages, cutting back on militarism, and most importantly, trying to ensure that the best of who we are as a people can be more manifest, can be more concrete, because the crisis is real and these catastrophes are bombarding us. Please come join us.
So none of what he says in the video excludes running as a Green. So let's read what he wrote in the caption of the video. I think he explains it a little more. People are hungry for change. They want good policies over partisan politics. We need to break the grip of the duopoly and give power to the people. I'm running as an independent candidate for president of the United States to end the iron grip of the ruling class and ensure true democracy. Now, you know what's ringing in my head right now? I'm a jazz man. I improvise. Is going from the going from the People's Party to the Green Party to now an independent, is this an indication of that ability to ad-lib, being a jazz man, or this is an indication of bad decision making, so you're trying to correct it? All right, so let's go to some other reaction here. I'm trying to be positive. Oh, let's go to here Jordan Sheraton here, because he has a clip from the actual announcement. Breaking: Cornel West will run as an independent for president, dropping his bid for Green Party nomination from his campaign. Cornel West is in this race to challenge the hegemony of the two ruling parties, which oppresses the poor and working class. It is time to stop ping-ponging between Republicans and Democrats while millions of friends and neighbors lack housing, health care, decent jobs, clean air, clean water, nutritious food, and healthy environment. I'm going to pause here. None of that. This could be the same speech if he was running as Green. So I still haven't heard a reason why the change, but we're going to get to a Dr. Jill Stein statement that was made right before the show started. Democracy means more choices, not backroom deals. It means, is that a reference to the Green Party? Is that what that's supposed to be? Not backroom deals. It means freedom to vote your conscience without being shamed or bullied. As Dr. West's campaign for president grows, he believes the best way to challenge the entrenched system is by focusing 100% on the people, not the intricacies of an internal party dynamic. So I think this is the part where because I don't know the details of this Green Party just corruption that people sort of refer to. And for me, the reason I just never really focused in on it is because if I'm hearing the same language. So for example, people on the left are using the same language to describe a person who robs the local liquor store as to describe a person who robs millions from homeowners. Like, that's problematic to me. And I'm almost not interested in even hearing your arguments. And to me, that was the case for the Green Party. It's like, yeah, they can have corruption, but if you're trying to, people were literally saying, oh, there's just as work. I was like, I got a problem with that. Then I got a problem with even going down that path with you with the argument. If you're going to say that, if you're going to say the guy who's robbing a local liquor store is the same as the guy who's robbing millions of people, I can't get with that. I can't get with that. But maybe that's what this is referring to. Our Constitution provides for independent candidates to gain ballot access in all states, and Dr. West has begun seeking ballot access as an independent, unaffiliated with any political party. As this movement gains momentum, Dr. West acknowledges and nods in solidarity with Green Party and for their shared value and commitment to justice. So let's look at some reaction here. And it's some good, some bad. I tried to get one or two good and one or two bad. This is Comrade Misty. This campaign is a mess. So maybe she has the same interpretation as one of the ones I described, which is this is either an indication that you are flailing because you have bad decision makers in the behind the scenes and you don't really know what you're doing strategic wise. It could appear that way, or it could appear a different way, like this. And here is Nico House, and he says, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Now, this is interesting because these two have similar politics. I wouldn't say exact, similar politics. And I don't know if Nico classifies himself as libertarian, but I know he is libertarian friendly. Like he is comfortable in those settings, and libertarians are comfortable with him. So this is what I was speaking to earlier. If this is a movement decision, is it a movement decision to get people like Nico House, who would have a problem with voting for somebody or supporting somebody who's part of the Green Party? So is this a move for that? Well, I guess we can come back to the ballot access question. And here's Peter Dow saying, here's the announcement from Peter Dow. Cornel West is running as an independent. There is no true democracy in America when two ruling parties actively work to prevent voters from having choice. Would you accept a restaurant with only 2 rotten items on the menu? Of course not. Fight for justice by fighting the duopoly. Now, when I sent the message to my RBN brothers and sister, Sabby, or Sabrina, I like to call her Sabrina, I had not read the Due Dissidence tweet yet. I had not read it. So is it an advantage to get more ballot access as an independent compared to as a Green? Meaning, are there less hurdles for a person who's running independent, not tied to a party, to get on the ballot? Meaning, if you, for example, you have to have certain amount of people support. I forget what the threshold, but you have to meet certain criteria in order to be considered a party in a state, right? So would there be more hurdles because he's running as a Green and a party? There's party hurdles along with candidate hurdles. But if you're running only as an independent, is there only candidate hurdles? And that's less. So that's why I said this is not cut and dry for anybody who's just, I'm 100% yes, I'm 100% no. No, you're not. If you are, you haven't sat down to take the time to really analyze some of these questions. And it's the answer to what I'm saying here. Is it he could get more ballot access? That's not the same thing as it being probable. Plausible and probable is not the same thing, because just saying as he could, yeah, I guess if he was able to raise $20 million every single month, if he was able to get some TV ads on, you get what I'm saying? Like, yes, there's a lot of in that yes answer. But let's go to Due Dissonance. Like I said, I didn't read their tweet before. I had already come up to the questions I already had, and then I came up on their tweet. It says, translations, the Greens have too much ballot access, and I might cost Biden the presidency if I stick with them. So I'm effectively bowing out. This is highly suspect. Now, I kind of fast forwarded to a point where you can see Cornel West interacting more right here.
African in America, or in Latin America, or in the Caribbean, or in the continent, you will be hunted no matter what you do, because they do not want us to survive and become self-sufficient. And you can say no, but you haven't lived this life. You haven't lived this life.
To be happy. I'm talking about that. All right. Oh, now, to paraphrase Senator Bradley of New Jersey, the state from which you're.
Okay, hang on a second here. Yeah, he is going to be talking here. Let's listen to Cornel.
Bradley gets much right when he talks.
He does, and he, among other things, and he's not claiming to be particularly original with the observation, we can't get there unless we go together. I have a terrible feeling that behind me are some people who do not agree.
Senator Bradley of the all-white United States Senate said
this is the clip right here. This is the clip right here.
Together. Sorry, none of us are
this is where it begins.
That's number one. Number two, you're making a moral appeal to a country that doesn't have a moral conscience. The question becomes that when white people feel serious and angry and upset about abortion, they come out in the thousands up to the millions to say, this is what we believe about abortion. Where is the white outcry against white racism that murders African people all around this entire globe? It doesn't exist. So who are these white good people? I want to meet them. I want to see them. Not enough.
But that's that might
Hold
be
on, everybody.
No. And guess what? I don't work with.
Hold on a second. I think I have a special guest. I just noticed you here, Keaton. Didn't see you, sir. Let me introduce Keaton from Due Dissonance. You know what, Keaton? I was gonna invite you, but I was like, I could swear that he was probably gonna do his own show, and I didn't want to step on you giving your opinion here before your show. But welcome, Keaton.
No.
Glad you were able to join. What's up, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. I didn't mean to crash your show. I messaged you because I was super chatting. I was watching while I was doing landscaping at my kid's daycare. So my kid's nursery school is a co-op, so I was on landscaping duty today. So I saw, you saw my tweet, and so I figured I'd offer to come on for a few minutes. I don't, but do your I don't mean to crash the show.
No, but it's good that you came on because you and I had messaged after I had messaged with the RBN the crew. I had messaged you and Kit, like, just what are you guys are thinking? What are some of the same things? I'll let you divulge what you said in the chat and sort of further explain. But why do you have this take? Independent, I don't know how much of the show you watch, because I want to hear if your reasons are different or slightly different. Why do you come to the conclusion you come to about this decision to go independent?
Well, I watched almost your whole thing. The only parts I missed were when the lawnmower was running and it was too loud. I couldn't hear. Other than that, I caught the whole thing.
Right on.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, the reason you hit the nail on the head when you said that, for RFK to switch from Democrat to independent is a good move because he's breaking from the duopoly. Cornel West was already outside of the duopoly with the Greens. And he was outside the duopoly in a way that made him more competitive. Like, the ultimate choice here is, does this move make you more or less competitive? And I wish I could see a world in which this made him more competitive, but I don't see that. The Greens have an infrastructure. They have ballot access. It's unclear how much ballot access they have. Some people say they're on 40 states. Some people say they're on 20. Right now, Cornel's starting from scratch again. He's got to build this out. He now has to pick and choose which states he seeks ballot access in, and I'm predicting right now that they are going to choose states to pursue access that are not swing states. I don't think he's going to pursue ballot access in Georgia or Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin. I don't see that. I think this decision was made because he got cold feet. And look, the signaling was there from day one with all the, Trump's a neo-fascist and all this stuff. And you guys asked him when you first interviewed him, you endorsed Biden last time. You seem to be very fearful of a second Trump term. And so these decisions are ultimately consistent with that. He's making himself less competitive. That's the bottom line. I went back and forth with Sabby a bit and, love Sabby. Can't wait to watch her interview with Jill Stein later this evening.
You did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is a healthy debate. Yeah, it's not.
We didn't go at each other
at all. Nothing like that. Yeah.
No.
But let's see her pushback, and I'm curious to know what your response was, and I'll read that. And it says, actually, the platform is way better now. The more candidates running independent, the better, in my opinion. Also, remember, RFK is also running independent, but the more candidates running, the platform is better. So because I have to be honest, I haven't read the platform, so I don't know if it's changed.
The platform is more thorough now. With the Greens, it was like they hired a fifth grader to write the platform on the website. It was like 4 paragraphs. It was like a book report when you didn't read the book. So it's much more thorough now. Okay, that's great. But the bottom line is, are you more competitive? To me, it's about being competitive. If you're going to pressure the duopoly, you have to be on the ballot in as many places as possible. You have to maximize your numbers and maximize the threat. And at this point, it's October. Look, it's early, yeah, but it's not really early anymore. It's not March. right? I mean, this is about the time where you'd have to start putting things together in a very serious way. And at this point, if he's switching back to independent now, then what were these past 3 months for with the Green Party? What momentum did we actually build? Is he any closer to getting on the ballot in as many states as possible than he was when he was with the fucking People's Party? Joke that was. Like, I just don't see how any progress has been made now in the past few months. It seems like he's starting over for a second time. This is now the third ballot line that he's talking about running on in as many months. You know, it just looks like it's falling apart organizationally. And I'm sorry, man. I hate to say this because I was super excited when he switched to the Greens, right?
I remember.
You know, so I really pains me to say this, but it seems to me like he is making himself less competitive out of fear that he's going to cost Joe Biden the race. That's what my gut is telling me. That's what my gut's telling me.
I must say that I can't argue against that. And again, we can't sort of analyze this in a vacuum. We have to look at who has Cornel West been. And like I said before, Cornel West was a Trump derangement, we must stop fascism just 3 years ago. And still in a lot of his analysis, you can still sort of hear that. So like to your point, he's been sort of given us signs, and maybe this feels like you ever been on a playground, like the real rough kids trying to get like a kid that's kind of nice to fight. It's like they don't really want to fight, but it's like, come on, man, come on, just do this. Just, you get what I'm saying? It feels like that's what was happening. That was what was happening with Cornel West, that the radicals, the Chris Hedges, the Jill Steins, the Ajamu Barakas, the Shama Sawants were saying, come on, Cornel, you can do it. You can do green. Let's do this. Let's do this. Right. And it was just it never came initiated from him. He was just always being persuaded from the other. And now that he's gone through 3 months, because to your point, when you said what has happened in 3 months, what has happened in 3 months from a perspective from a professional managerial class, Keaton, is that I've been getting attacked by my colleagues. I've been getting attacked from people who are in my class. I've been getting attacked from people like David Corn. I've been getting attacked, and all these people who used to be nice to me aren't so nice to me now.
Exactly.
Even Anderson Cooper, I used to come on, they aren't so nice to me. So this is not really a good space for me. So a person with that mindset would be open, whether consciously or subconsciously, be open to the idea of doing something less as adversarial, but still calling it sort of that, like outside of the duopoly. What say you to some of that sort of critique?
No, I was nodding along the whole time. I think that's all absolutely right. Look, when he was approached by Nick Brana, don't forget he was recruited into this whole thing by Nick Brana, right? True. And he said, sure, yeah, I'll run for president. You know, Nick probably needed to get the rent paid, so he needed a candidate, right? So he finds Cornel. Okay, I'll do it. Great. Cornel's probably thinking, man, look, Cornel's a brilliant guy. Cornel's probably thinking when he agrees to run with the People's Party, all right, maybe I'll be on the ballot in a handful of states, but this will be a way for me to get my message out there and a way for him to advocate for certain issues that he's always advocated for very strongly. And, you know, that's all well and good. But I don't think he ever expected to be on the ballot. He didn't expect to be a real threat on election day with the People's Party. Then, as you said, very, very correctly, Chris Hedges got his ear, Shama Sawant got his ear, Jill Stein, no, come on, you'd be better on the Greens. This could be so awesome if you ran with the Greens. So he's like, all right, well, I guess I got to say yes, right? Because if I say no, then I give up the game that I'm not really seeing.
Right.
Fine, I'll do it. And then I think, and I did say this when RFK announced that he was going to go independent. I said this, I forget if it was the last stream or the stream before, where we put out a standalone video and RFK announced he was going to be running as an independent. I said, with RFK and Cornel on the ballot, it makes it almost impossible for Joe Biden to win. Yes. Because with both of those candidates taking votes from Biden, and yes, RFK will siphon votes from Biden. I know people say he's going to take more from Trump. I don't really buy that. Trump's base is much more loyal to Trump than Biden's
Right.
base is to Biden.
I agree.
So if you got RFK and Cornel dragging Biden's vote totals down, it's almost impossible to beat a candidate with a loyal base like Trump. And I think that may have scared Cornel. I think that may have really scared Cornel. And I believe I said that in a show, last week. People can go back and check the tape if they want. But I think that scared him because now that RFK is running independent, now it's no longer, maybe I'll cost Biden the race. Now it's, I'll almost definitely cost Biden the race. Because with RFK on the ballot, you can win this election with 40 points. And I don't see Biden getting to 40 points with both RFK and Cornel dragging him down. If Cornel's at 5% and RFK's at 10, 15%, there's just not the math there for Joe Biden. I think that scared Cornel off. I really do. And I hate to say it. I don't take any pleasure in saying any of this. I know Savvy's in the chat. I know she says the platform's better. I respect that. That's fine. And yes, you asked me, what is RFK going to do? I don't know if it might be too late for RFK. I mean, he doesn't look like he's going to run on the libertarian line. So if he's not on the libertarian line, he's going to have this same problem of starting from scratch and having to build out. I don't know what kind of money he has behind him. He's a Kennedy. I'm assuming he has more than Cornel, so maybe he's got a shot. But look, I'm not bullish on RFK. I never have been. Yeah, CJ and I and Nick and Russ and Tim, we've talked plenty of shit about RFK over the past. Like, I'm not an RFK stan by any means. And it's probably too late for him to do anything. But, he is at least going in the right direction from duopoly to outside the duopoly. Cornel's going in the wrong direction. He went from outside the duopoly, inside an institution with ballot access, to now outside the duopoly, all on his own. 4 months after he got in the race with the People's Party, he'd have been better off just sticking with them if he was going to do this, because he just took 4 months off of the clock with really nothing to show for it at this point.
Is there a positive way to look at this? If you and I were Cornel West, I don't know if he really has stands. Like, it doesn't feel like he has stands. He just feels like he has people that would support him, like us. I wouldn't consider myself a stand.
Look, the closest I can get to that, the rosiest I can look at this is if you say, look, the Greens are dysfunctional, the Greens don't have their shit together, and so now he gets to build whatever movement he wants to build on his own terms, and that's better than having to do it inside the Green Party. Okay, I once again, this is if we're going to go down that road where we're trying to make this look as good for him as possible.
Right.
I mean, I can get there if you're talking about him starting some movement, some organization down the road. If you're talking about maximizing your impact on Election Day 2024, I'm sorry, I don't see anything positive about this move at all. He set himself back. He took 4 months off of the game clock, moved the ball down the field nowhere, because now he has to start all over again. And now he gets to pick and choose where he wants ballot access. And this is a prediction that I'll make. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I do not think Cornel West's name is going to be on any ballots in any swing states. That's my gut. That's what it's saying.
What's up, Sam?
Can you guys hear me first of all? Because I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I can't hear Sabby.
I can.
Hello?
Can you hear Sabby?
Yeah.
There she goes. Now I can hear you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that, I know a little bit more about the situation, and there's a lot of things that have happened in the background that people are not aware of. And so first and foremost, I think that people need to realize that the Green Party does have a primary. Dr. West is not the Green Party nominee. There are other candidates that are running in the Green Party for president. In fact, I'm interviewing one of them next week. I think it's next week. Davi. But part of the problem, hold on, let me get my door. Hold on.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
Sorry. Yeah, so this is some of the things that people don't know. Like, there are other candidates running in the Green Party for president. People have just not interviewed them. So a couple of them have reached out to me. So I know one of them is supposed to be coming on next week. Mm-hmm. And what people have to understand is that, remember, there was that whole big riff about the Green Party rigs their primaries. Remember that whole thing?
Sure.
Well, some of those people that were part of the Green Party during that time, they were very critical when Dr. West announced that he was running the Green Party. They were like, why are you doing that? They rigged their primaries against like, what was his name? Dario, etc.
I remember that.
And so those people were like, Dr. West should run as an independent. He should not be running in any political party. We need to abolish political parties. So if you look at the platform, it's very obvious that at least Dr. West was listening to the things that people said, because now I notice we talked to him about public banking. Public banking's on the platform. It's more specific, it's more detailed, and he's running as an independent, which is what a lot of people were pushing for. But what's funny is that now some of those same people, not you guys, but some of those same people that were saying he should run as an independent, now that he's running as an independent, now they're criticizing that he's running as an independent.
Yeah,
So
because
it's
it
just
wasn't me that thought he should run independent, because I don't. I think he should run as a Green. But it's curious to me that people would have that criticism, Sabby, that they want him to. Then what did they want, Sabby? What are they saying they want?
But
Like they said, run as an independent, and now he's doing it. Like,
But
what is their response to that?
that's what I'm saying, CJ. Some people, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are valid criticisms, but I have noticed some people are being contrarian just for the sake of being contrarian. So my thing is, if you complained that he should be running as an independent, then you should be happy that he's running as an independent, because that means he listened to what you were saying. But for the people who are like, oh my God, now he's running as independent, what happened? Why aren't you running with the Green Party? I'm like, some of you guys sat up there and you criticized the Green Party. You said he shouldn't do it because they rigged their primaries. You guys said the Green Party was attached to the Democratic Party. You said the Green Party was infiltrated. So it's like, what do you want me to do?
Do you know if Renee had been saying something like that?
Yes. In fact, and sorry to yell, but yes, in fact, she's already out there. She's already out there right now criticizing. When you were the one who said he should not be doing this through the Green Party because they're infiltrated and Now he's doing what you said to do, and now you complaining that he's doing what you said to do.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
look,
weird.
I couldn't really speak to that. I was always of the opinion that he should run where he can be the most competitive in November. Like that's what it was about for me the whole time. And that's why, when he announced with the People's Party, we said, no, he should be with the Greens, because they're going to give him the most access to the most ballots and make him the most competitive and therefore the biggest threat to the system. I mean, do you think that the Democrats here, let me just ask this very, very broad question of everybody. Do you think the Democratic Party takes this as good news or bad news? I think they take this as terrific news. I think they are breathing sighs of relief over at Mother Jones, over at CNN. I think they take this as a huge weight off their shoulders.
No, because in the recent commentary that was on liberal media, when it was announced that RFK Jr. was running independent, they were not happy about that.
Well, because RFK running independent, this is what CJ said earlier, RFK running independent makes him a bigger threat because he's going from inside the Democratic rigged primary to outside. So he'll be on an outside ballot. Now, RFK is a bigger threat to them as a libertarian than he is as an independent. So if I had my druthers, he would run as a libertarian, or maybe even for the Greens now that there's an opening there. Ha ha, just kidding.
Sabby, did you get a chance to see?
That's where I think we would have to come from. Go ahead,
Sabby, and then I'll ask my question.
Nick Brana is trying to get RFK Jr. to run through the People's Party.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Well, that would be
Yes, they already announced he's going to be there next week when RFK Jr. makes the announcement. He's already trying to get him run through the People's Party.
I've heard those rumors, yeah.
Wow.
So it's just, but I know that for a fact, and what people have to understand is that the People's Party is bankrupt.
No, but Sabby, I'm not. You
mean
saying
literally?
That.
You mean financially? Literally?
Yeah,
well,
they have no.
In every way, I think.
They have no money. The People's Party has no money. But the thing is that what I have noticed, and the reason why I got upset, and like I said, some of the criticisms are very valid. But my thing is like people made criticisms, and then they listened and they made those changes, right? So people made criticisms about the fundraising. They listened and they made those changes, which, by the way, the fundraising for the event, that was something that was set up prior to when Peter joined the party. So who set that up? You see what I'm saying?
Good question. Good question.
So the thing is that what I have noticed is that for whatever reason, and you guys can come up with your own conclusions, but for whatever reason, it appears to me that people are being a lot harder on Dr. West than they are on RFK Jr.
No, but
I mean,
think
I've
the
seen
reason
that
for
even
that
before
is
this. Not necessarily on this particular item, but I've seen on sort of issues. I've seen this same sort of heavy-handed on Cornel West. But go ahead, Keaton, and then I'm going to ask Sabby if she's seen Dr. Jill Stein's statement. But what were you going to say, Keaton?
No, yeah, what I was going to say, I mean, I was going to echo what CJ said earlier. RFK, in going independent, he's switching from the Democrats to the independents, which is a step in the right direction because RFK in the Democratic primary was a non-issue. He was a non-starter. It was an irrelevant campaign. It mattered nothing. Now that RFK is switching to an independent line, he's definitely more of a threat as an independent than he is as a Democrat, because as a Democrat, there's no beating Joe Biden in that primary either way. So he's a bigger threat as an independent than he would be as a Democrat, but he would be an even bigger threat as a Green or as a Libertarian than he is as an independent, right? So that's why I think people are applauding RFK's choice, because he's going in the right direction. He's moving outside the duopoly. Now, is he going to an outside institution with ballot access to make him a big threat, as big a threat as possible? No, but he's moving in the correct direction, whereas Cornel was already in the best spot he could have been, in my view.
I thought he was too.
Because he was guaranteed ballot access in, I don't know what the number is. Nobody seems to be really
It's
sure
like
about that.
it's
I don't
like
know if you know, Sam.
It varies.
it's like 20 states, and then there's another issue that came up with the ballot access. This guy came onto my show to talk about it, who's also part of the Green Party. He was trying to warn people against voting for Marianne in the primary and then saying you're going to vote for Green Party in the general, because he said that depending on which state you live in, the Green Party, they need to stay on the ballot. And so he claimed, and I don't know the whole backstory, but he claimed that Bernie Sanders actually hurt the Green Party fight when the Greens were like, let's vote for Bernie in the primary. People were like, let's vote for him in the primary, and then we'll vote for the Green Party in the general. Because apparently, like, in some states, you need like registered Green Party voters, or they can take you off the ballot. So, for example, North Carolina, most recent example with Matthew Hoh. Matthew Hoh got all the signatures. They got all the signatures for the Green Party, and North Carolina took him off the ballot anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and it's because I can speak to this. It's because I was speaking to this earlier when I was asking the question. When I was asking, what was I asking? I forget the question.
You were asking about Jill Stein earlier, right?
Yeah, but what I was saying is that just like you're saying, like you need a certain amount of people to say I'm a Green Party, I'm part of the Green Party, in order for you to be considered an official party in certain states. So this is one of the things I was saying is he making this move because it's easier as an independent to get on more states? Because if you're part of a party, you have a party threshold and you also have a candidate threshold that you have to meet. So this is one of the things
they're aiming for. Yeah, they're aiming for the 30 states that the Green Party does not have ballot access in. That I do know. I know they're aiming for those states because the Green Party has like 20, right? So the other thing is too was like, so for example, with my state in Massachusetts, in order for him to have Green Party access in Massachusetts, what we have to do is we have to register as Greens. So when Justin came onto my show, he explained how this worked in different states. So that's another one of those examples where people need to be registered in order for him to be on the ballot. So in Massachusetts, they can't come here and just collect signatures. Right. It's going to be based on the number of people that are registering, like that kind of thing. And for the person in the chat that said hugging Cornel West was about access, Cornel West has been on my show. He's been on RBN. He's been on smaller channels, et cetera, et cetera. I was at a rally doing my fucking job, and Cornel West came up to say hello.
I didn't see that. That's ridiculous, Savvy. But we're gonna get that. You get the people that's gonna take certain arguments to the ridiculous extent. Like you can't give somebody a hug. Get the hell out. What if Savvy knew him for years ago?
That's my fucking job. I went to RFK's campaign announcement and I covered that too. Do you see me hanging out with RFK Jr.? Have you seen RFK Jr. or RBN or on my show? No.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I didn't see that comment, but I agree, Savvy, with that.
But the Jill thing. So Jill, so originally this was before I left to go to DC. I had invited Jill to come on to talk about the decision of choosing Peter Dow, right? And discuss that. And she said, I'll get back to you, that kind of thing. Then she got back to me and said that she's ready to come on and that there was going to be an announcement today. But I didn't know what the announcement was going to be, but we found out. So Jill will be on tonight to talk about it. I mean, it sounds like to me, based on the tweet from Jill, it sounds like it doesn't seem like it's bitter or like beef between each other. It sounds like it was like a mutual kind of decision. I didn't get the impression there was any like bitterness between the two parties. But
I wouldn't call it bitterness, but I would absolutely think that was a knockdown, drag out fight behind the scenes about this decision. Because Jamu Baraka to be included in this particular statement when he hasn't been included in any other statement and some of the quotes that she put gives me the impression. I don't think they disagree with animosity. So that's not what at all. What I'm saying. It's no animosity. Go ahead, Keaton.
Yeah, I have the tweet on my phone. So this is about 3 paragraphs down. She says, this is from Jill. In deciding to run as an independent, the West campaign leaves behind the ballot lines they would have had access to, as well as the guidance of experienced ballot access staff and Green volunteers familiar with the process in most of the 50 states. We expect this will be a formidable obstacle in the coming months. So what she's saying there is, in deciding to leave the Green Party, he's making it a lot harder on himself, which sounds to me like she didn't want him to leave. And so if she didn't want him to leave, that sounds to me like it was Cornel and Peter Dow's decision to leave. And, listen, I can't lie. I can't tell you something I don't think. When I read that, I hear Cornel realized that he was too big a threat to Joe Biden on that Green Party ballot line, especially now with RFK in the race, who's also going to be taking votes from Joe Biden. That's how that reads. The Greens didn't want him to go. It's not like they had a fight and it just ended. It reads to me like the Greens did not want him to go, or at least Jill didn't, and Jill pulls a lot of weight in the Green Party.
So I think we all have to remember, before Peter Dow was assigned to this campaign, remember one of the things that he continued to say is that he had already asked all 3 of them to run as independents. He asked RFK, so I guess RFK listened to him too, but he asked RFK, he asked Marianne. Marianne's apparently not going to budge there. And he said all of them should be running as independents because he said he believed the more people that you have running independent, the more of a threat that'll be towards the duopoly. Now, it sounds like RFK Jr. has listened, has taken that advice. Sounds like Cornel's taking that advice. Like I said, I don't think Marianne is going to. But what I'm saying is this may have not been a decision of the Green Party or per se. It could have been maybe Peter said, I think that you should run as independent. We won't know. Like, I'm going to talk to Jill tonight. I'll get her perspective about it. And hopefully we'll get to hear from Dr. West too to get his perspective about it. But I just want to remind everyone. Huh?
How recent is that tweet that you're talking about with Dow? Because I remember him talking at the very early on, at least it was like a year ago, where he was talking about how he wanted independence in the race. That was before he joined the Marianne campaign. Is that what you're talking about?
There was that, but then also he said the same thing about Mary. He said the same thing again.
Oh, sure.
After he left Marianne's campaign. Yeah. And also when he joined Cornel West's campaign, he said in my interview, he said, all of them should be running as independents. So I think people might have missed that. But he did say that in the interview.
Well, I read that completely different, and it could be my suspicious mind. I read that as a Democratic shield getting people to run independent, because that's the hardest way to run independently out. You get what I'm saying? That's not, don't run libertarian, don't run green.
It could
So
just be a
how I
semantic
would
thing, too.
read that is that, and if we're referring to the same tweet, I didn't take it as literal. I thought he was saying something like RFK and Marianne should be running outside of the duopoly, whether green, whether independent or green, like Cornel West. But I could be wrong.
He spoke. He actually had a conversation with RFK, an actual conversation. So this was before, obviously, this new announcement, like from RFK Jr. to run independent, and he did say it, like, in my interview. I mean, we won't know, like, for sure, like, what caused. We may not know all the details, but I wonder if that's where it came from. If maybe, like, Peter was like, you should be running independent. The other thing that was really interesting to me that I noticed how quickly the platform changed. A lot of the things that we have been asking for, like when he was running under the Green Party, I'm like, you need a detailed list with just bullets that people can just go to and look at. You need to add this, you need to add that, you should have this, you'd have that. And the moment that he switched to independent, those things are all on the website. So again, I wonder, is it so much that the party was like, well, this is how we do it in the Green Party and yada, yada, that kind of thing? I don't know. So I guess that's something that we'll have to, like, find out.
I think I just read that as people have been telling them, hey, we need more detail, and whether this was an announcement to run green, that they were going to update the website with more detail about their what they want to do. I don't necessarily, unless there's a change in something, that a policy, you get what I'm saying? Unless
but the policies have changed, though. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
if you look at
his point
well,
of view,
it's much more fleshed out. I mean, the platform section on the Green Party website, like I said, it was like a fifth grader who didn't do the book report.
Right, but is
it was
it
a few
changed
paragraphs.
or just
yes,
more
because
detail?
because now it says public banks. That wasn't on the original platform. Now he also mentioned, was it $27 an hour minimum wage, and then like $80,000 a year for public school teachers, like those kind of things. So there's a lot more, like, information there. So it does sound like he did listen to some of the criticism. But I think the thing that really got me is when people were criticizing Cornel West, you won't call Biden fascist. And I think all of us disagree with Dr. West on that. I told him I didn't agree with him on that, with saying that one is neoliberal and one is fascist. But what was interesting to me is RFK Jr. can sit there in an interview and say that he's friends with Joe Biden and the Biden family, and I didn't see that same attack on him.
I mean, we did. I mean, we called him out for that. I'm pretty sure, Nick
But the majority did not. But the majority did not, especially the ones supporting RFK Jr. They did not call it out.
But
sure.
This is what I would like to say
valid.
about the people with RFK. For me, I don't think we should be lumping RFK supporters as being with us. To me, RFK supporters are not necessarily left. They're just non-establishment. For example, I don't consider Craig Pasta to be left. I just consider him to be non-establishment. So if we're talking about, non-establishment, sort of libertarian adjacent people, they're absolutely, Sabby, going to have a different critique about this, and they're going to show their hypocrisy. And I'm not saying Pasta, I'm not inferring that at all about Pasta. I'm saying in general, they're going to show, you're going to see that, Sabby, that hypocrisy between the Cornel West and the RFK. And I just think it just shows their affinity for RFK, and it shows that they're more libertarian than left, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't, say that most of them are left either. But I just think that it was interesting to me, whether you're left or not, if somebody tells you that they're friends with Joe Biden and they're friends with his family, my whole thing is be like, same thing. Do you consider Joe Biden to be a fascist? He didn't get those questions. He didn't get that kind of pushback. And you notice RFK Jr. has not gone onto any show that has a left audience, not a left host, a left audience. He hasn't gone on the Useful Idiots. He still ain't gone on to the Gray Zone. He hasn't been on Bad Faith. Like you guys noticed, like most of the interviews that he did has been on libertarian podcasts and conservative media.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but once again, I mean, if you look at RFK's platform, he's generally a liberal. I mean, he is really a liberal. He has a lot of crossover appeal, which is why I always thought it made more sense for him to run as an independent. Now, if you want to say a lot of RFK supporters are holding RFK to a different standard that they're holding Cornel West to, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And part of why that's true is because they don't like Cornel West as much as they like RFK, because Cornel West is further left than
Yeah.
RFK, and he's further left than
Yes.
them. So, I mean, I think that all makes sense. Like, that's all sound. But in terms of like the treatment that RFK's gotten these past few days, like one of the reasons why I've been personally, I wouldn't say more sympathetic to RFK the past few days, but I would give RFK credit for moving in the correct direction these past few days. Whereas, you know, I see this as Cornel moving in the wrong direction, because I just think he's making himself weaker. I think this makes him weaker. It makes him a weaker candidate because he does not have the kind of infrastructure, and he doesn't have the ballot access that he would have if he just stayed where he was. And it seems to me like the Greens
I mean, I
wanted him to
guess
stay where he was.
I guess we'll find out why, but I think, you know, from what I've heard from people that are RFK supporters, they said they mainly support him because of the pandemic. And the pushback that I give towards that is that you have to remember RFK Jr. was pro mandates. And a lot of people don't remember that. So it's just when people say, well, Dr. West didn't move on this issue fast enough for me, neither did RFK Jr. But people don't want to bring that up, and people get mad when you say that. But the receipts are all out there. If we want to talk about the person, the actual candidate who was ahead on this before RFK Jr. even came into the scene in reference to that Defeat the Mandates rally, that was actually Dr. Shiva.
Yeah, I knew
Dr. Shiva actually had these points and all the data and research out there before RFK Jr. even started to say these things. So if it's really just about the mandates, why aren't all those people getting behind Dr. Shiva's campaign?
Look,
It's
I mean,
not.
I think,
It's
look, I
not.
think those are fair points, and you know, look, I'm not here to advocate for RFK or Cornell or anybody. I'm just calling it as I see it in terms of making an impact. The way I see the 2024 race is a question of how can we cause as much panic within the electoral
Yeah.
system as possible. Like, that's the big question here. And then, you know, obviously platforms matter, right? Policies obviously matter because that sort of determines the terms on which you're going to build this new movement. But in terms of whatever the date on the calendar is, November 5th, whatever, 2024, the goal on that day is to cause as much panic as possible in Democratic Party headquarters, and in CNN headquarters, and MSN. Like, that's the goal as far as I could see. That's the short-term goal here. And RFK switching from Democrat to independent is in service of that goal. Cornel West switching from Green to independent, to me, is not in service of that goal because it makes his candidacy weaker. Somebody posted in the chat earlier that they said Keaton is too focused on threat level instead of message and views. Well, this is a campaign. This is a campaign. There's a day on the calendar where we need to make as big an impact as possible in terms of hitting this political establishment as forcefully as we possibly can. And so in that sense, I do think there is an argument to say that, yes, threat level is as important, if not more important, than messaging and views in that respect. And so that's why,
if you're talking about elections, I
Yeah.
would have to agree with a lot of what you're saying, and this is why I posed it as is this pro Democrat or pro movement, because it can be flipped to be like, yeah, this is kind of pro movement. I'm trying to open it up to more people. But the problem is we can't look at it as a vacuum. We have to acknowledge that Peter Dow is a Democratic shield, and now this is happening because of him. So is this really being done because of some sort of movement? We shall see. What I want to do is I can't wait for the first interview on Left Media that gets Cornel West after this announcement. I hope it's you, Sabby. I know you probably already reached out or will be reaching out. But that's what I want to hear. I just want to hear, and I want it to be a good interview. That's why I hope it's you, Sabby, because Cornel West he doesn't do this intentionally. It's just his style. He talks in a very broad sense. Sometimes you gotta go back and ask him the question so you can narrow down and get an answer. So I hope that it's not somebody just lets him give these non-answer answers and we don't really get an understanding about what's happening. But go ahead, Sabby.
Well, I was also going to say too that I think that we have to remember from the very beginning, Dr. West said this was a movement. It's not just a presidential campaign. So I think if we're just looking at it as a presidential campaign, like, oh man, this sucks because now you don't have ballot access, that kind of thing, then it's going to be easier to say, like, what the hell, like, what the hell is happening here? But I think that look at some of the things that have already been happening on the ground. Like, so Cornel West hosted a seminar for Cop City, Stop Cop City. He was at the climate march in New York City. I know some people had criticism, over that or who was there. He was just at the Peace in Ukraine rally in DC, just spoke at that. I mean, and he was just at the protest with the UAW workers. So when people say, well, Dr. West needs to get moving and needs to start doing something, he's been doing things. I think some people just ain't paying attention to it because it's stuff that's happening on the ground and they're looking at just the campaign. So I think that there should be that same push when we look at people like, because I don't know what Marianne been up to either, but when we look at the other candidates, and I said this to Dr. Shiva as well, Dr. Shiva, Marianne Williamson, RFK Jr., where are they on these issues? What's RFK's position on Cop City? Because the last interview I saw where he was questioned about policing, he said that his website was incorrect.
Yeah,
and that he was actually not against qualified immunity.
Correct.
But all those people who came after Cornel West and said his website is messed up and those people were silent. Again, not you, Keaton, but those people were silent when it came to RFK Jr. having incorrect information on his website. And it wasn't just about the policing issue. It was also about the abortion issue.
Yes.
Both of those topics on his website, according to his interviews, were incorrect.
Yeah, no, we covered both of those, actually. The police reform sort of flip-flop and the reproductive rights question from, I think it was an NBC reporter. Yeah, look, I mean, no, RFK has a lot of very dogmatic supporters who can be extremely annoying. Like, I agree. Like, I'm in full agreement with you on that. But I also think that, like, what I was really excited about when Cornel decided to run is that we have this movement leader, whose politics are basically mine. I mean, now that he has a more thorough platform, I'd have to look through it. But I was always kind of surprised. It almost seemed too good to be true that he would intentionally pose the kind of threat to the Democrats that a Green Party run poses for reasons that you guys here on RBN talked about from minute one when you first interviewed him, Nick and CJ, when you brought up the fact that he endorsed Biden last time. You brought up the fact that he, considers Biden milquetoast, whereas Donald Trump is neo-fascist, right? Like, and the biggest thing, and this is, CJ, you made this point on a previous stream as a point that really stuck with me. You're like, the leftists in Cornel West's class are Democrats, which means that for him to actually, yes, I mean, obviously it's wonderful that he was on the ground with the UAW workers. It's wonderful that he was at the anti-NATO rally. What was it, 2-3 nights back? That's all great. But what we're looking for in a campaign is someone who can consolidate that movement energy in a way that threatens the Democratic Party. And we have a unique opportunity to do that. And Cornel seemed like if he really wanted to go there, that he was uniquely well equipped to go there because he is a relatively big name as Green Party candidates go. And so we saw this real opportunity there, but at the same time, it always kind of felt too good to be true because, as CJ pointed out, so many of in Cornel's circle are blue no matter who at the end of the day, right? And so I think we're kind of seeing him revert to those ways by making himself less competitive with this most recent move. It feels like he's quiet quitting. That's how I kind of put it to you, CJ, in the private messaging. Like, he's not dropping out because that would just be kind of too embarrassing. He would be letting too many people down. But he's kind of slowly taking himself out of the game. That's what it feels like to me. And look, I hope to God I'm wrong. I say this every time I have a criticism of Cornel West, is that I really hope I'm wrong. And I really, obviously, Sabby, look forward to watching your interview with Jill later on, because
Yeah, that's gonna be
I
great.
think a lot of this conversation right now is speculation until we kind of hear more detailed answers from her. But I would just love to know what exactly happened, because to me, the question is, who initiated this split? It sounds to me like, reading her tweet, and again, I could be misinterpreting, I could be wrong. It sounds to me like Cornel and Dow initiated the split. That tells me he got cold feet. That's how that reads
Well,
to me.
What's your final thoughts, Sabby?
we'll have to find out, but I think that people do need to understand, and I've had people come on my show and talk about this as well. The Green Party, like the other two parties, they have their issues as well. And we do have to remember, Cornel West is not the nominee. There are other people that are running the Green Party. He still does have to go through a primary in the Green Party. So that is something just to keep in mind. But what's also interesting to me, even with the campaign manager, and I have many criticisms of Peter Dow, which I told Peter I have many criticisms. It's interesting, again, when you look at the campaign manager, RFK Jr.'s campaign manager is a Democrat. Dennis Kucinich is a Democrat. He was a congressman.
Mm-hmm.
And none of these same people were like, oh my God, RFK Jr.'s campaign manager, he was a Democrat congressman. He's gonna do this for Joe Biden. He's gonna give it to the Democrats. Where was that same criticism? When his campaign manager, who actually was correct on the issue of Israel and Palestine and said it on the world stage when it was not popular to do so, and RFK Jr. still can't get Israel and Palestine correct, what's that really about? So if we want to focus on campaign managers, we need to ask RFK Jr., why does he have a campaign manager that's a Democrat? But people won't do that with him. They'll do that with Dr. West, but they won't do that with RFK Jr.
Well, there's a couple of things. I don't have as much RFK supporters clearly as you do, Sabby, in your feed, because I don't know any of this stuff that you're talking about with RFK. Because only time I hear about RFK supporters is Pasta, so I kind of lean on him as my resident RFK supporter. But one thing to note about Dennis Kucinich, he is far and away better than Peter Dow. He's so good that the Democrats prevented him and kicked him out of the conference. He could not caucus with them, and then they switched up his area that he represented so that he would lose, and that was all based on his fight, his anti-war stance. So for me, I get your question, because the people who are giving RFK a pass, they don't have the same critique, so they can't give the critique that I'm giving. They just saying a different thing. They're just sort of being hypocrites. But for me, saying that, hey, I made a decision to say I'm going to support Claudia, so I have just a basic just analysis of it, and I can just say Dennis Kucinich was far and away better than Peter Dow. But for those that support RFK Jr., you can't. To me, you don't have the same ability to have that stand, because you support RFK, who has said much more about how his love for the Democratic Party than a Cornel West has done so. So that's my.
But Dennis Kucinich said the same thing when he was on Kim Iverson's show. Dennis Kucinich, because Kim Iverson interviewed him very early on, and she said, "Why are you still supporting the Democratic Party?" And he said, "Because I'm a Democrat."
Yep.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, I think that's all valid, but I think what explains a lot of it is the fact that Cornel and RFK have very different groups of supporters, in terms of people who are dug in to one of those two candidates. And so, like, what you're saying is absolutely valid, Sabby, I think, but I think it's a little bit of an apples and oranges comparison, because we're talking about two different candidates who appeal to two different voter bases. And for me, when I'm looking at this right now, I'm looking at this more, and yes, guilty as charged for people who have said this in the chat about me. I'm looking at this for who is more precise and who is more strategic and who is more serious about ruining the Democrats' night in November 2024. That's what the election is about to me. Now, you want to talk about showing up on the ground and movement building? That's all fantastic. I'm obviously all about that. But when we're talking about candidacies and campaigns, and we're talking about a unique opportunity where it's looking like two failed presidents are going to be running against each other, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And you're talking about the opportunity for a third party to just come in and fuck this whole shit up. I feel like we really need to be precise and ruthless, and yes, a bit Machiavellian. That's a word that came up in the Jimmy Dore interview, in how we maximize our impact. And this week, I think RFK made a step in the right direction. I think Cornel made a step in the wrong direction. And so
well, we don't even know. We don't even know what the RFK step. We don't know if it's the right direction or not, because the announcement comes next week.
Yeah, well,
so we don't know what he's.
I added that caveat. If he goes People's Party, then yeah, we'll be laughing.
That would be terrible. That would be terrible.
Yeah, that's possible.
No, it's just like for me, like personally, I'm going by like the policies. Like, yes, and I told Dr. West when I had the interview with him, I told him I disagree with you on the position of Trump versus Joe Biden. And I've explained that multiple times on my show. We do have our disagreements. But for me, I'm looking at policy and policy perspective. At the same time, I do understand that some people are one-issue voters. So there are people that have told me, and not on Twitter, by the way, but have told me in person when I was at his campaign announcement that the only reason why they're supporting RFK Jr. is because of his position on the pandemic. And so that's what it is for some people. And for some people,
the vast majority? Isn't that the vast majority? I thought that was the vast majority of his supporters is because of that. I thought
some have also said because of his criticism of the deep state as well. Like some have said because of that. But most of the people that I talked to said it was because of his position on the pandemic. But again, like I said, RFK Jr. in the beginning was pro-mandate. He was actually for the mandates.
I didn't even know. I didn't know that.
Yes, he was for the mandates. And every time we bring up those videos of him saying those things, then people get mad and they say, "Oh, well, he was able to be moved on this issue." And I'm like, yeah, he was able to be moved on this issue after Dr. Shiva released the data about the mandates and the lockdowns. And RFK Jr. got all the credit for the shit that Dr. Shiva did.
What's up, Nick? Nick just joined us, Abby. If you can't see, and I know Keaton has been with me for a while. If you need to drop out, just let me know.
I got to cut out in a few minutes because I got to go pick my kid up, but I don't want to bail on Nick right away, so I'll stay for a little while longer.
Yeah,
I hate to leave because I'm really bringing the diversity to the panel now. I have to say,
yes,
you're going to have a much less diverse panel with me gone.
Yes. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends? Great to hear from Savvy. Great to have Keaton on. CJ, I was listening the whole time. I was shit posting in the chat for a bit.
Yeah.
I had some time.
I saw that. I saw some of your comments.
Yeah. So I saw this. And regarding my take on Cornel West going independent, I'll tell you guys, I'm a straight up pragmatist. I want whatever works the best. The first opinion on this is it seems like it's gonna hurt the ballot initiatives, correct? So that seemed like going to be a big problem. That's why it seemed like it doesn't seem like the best move just because the ballot is still part. But I think this is just another example. This is why I said in the chat as well. Why kind of electoral politics is a joke. And I say that in terms of we can't expect it to be the saving grace of our movement building. And I'm almost to the point now when you see the insane betrayals by AOC and Bernie, which I still think people are coping with to this day. I'm becoming even more radicalized seeing people fall for the Ukraine war, people voting for Biden, people going soft in an era that really needs intellectual left thinking and radicalism. So now I'm almost like we need to form our own governments. And this is what we're doing with RBN chapters at the end of the day. I want you guys to understand that no matter what happens, whether Cornel West is Green Party, independent, whether RFK is running independent, Claudia, the Cruz, our mission doesn't change no matter what. We're still doing the same thing. And I'm thinking right now that we need to have a citizen, a working class, outside government where we can maintain and take care of ourselves. This is what people call mutual aid societies. Take ourselves outside of the system, have our own governing bodies, and advocate for policies that allow us to do that. Like, for example, 10 demands. where we call for community control of public safety, community direct control in our lives. But this take outside work, movement building, community building. What I'm trying to, I'm about to start a boxing club here in Kansas City. My boy got back to the sweet science, so building boxing clubs. We about to have clothing drives to help give away clothes, and we're gonna have more people volunteering. You guys see, by doing this, by having mutual aid, where we are like completely divested from the system, but we taking care of each other, we form our own kind of government in a way, where we taking care of each other's needs, and then we become a militant political force while doing that. And a third party can be a tool to that. So if a third party want to help these mutual aid societies that's going to need to stoke a revolution, they can take a part of that. They can show up at our events. They can advocate for our policies. And that's what I'm waiting for. Will I vote for Dr. Cornel West? Maybe. I don't know if he's going to be on the ballot now. Greens is usually on the ballot in Missouri. I said it from the beginning. I'm not declaring my support for anyone. I'm declaring I will support anyone who's showing up for the movement. And that's what I think the only way to change. Because right now there are a lot of people who are incrementalists. Jimmy, it was good to see Jimmy call for revolution. A lot of people say, how is the revolution going to happen? A revolution in this country is not going to happen without an established mutual aid society where we're completely separated. We got each other's back. When the police state target us, we don't target activists using the police state like Bernie Sanders, right? We got bail funds ready. I'm talking about a completely different form of leftism than we ever see in this country. The kind of leftism that got revolutions won in the global South, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Nick, to the revolution part that you brought up. Another thing too was like when we talk about the police state, when and if a revolution happens in this country, guess who's gonna come after us? It's gonna be the police state, right? So this is why something like stopping Cop City is very important. We do not need the police to be militarized. We don't need them having any more militarized equipment. Like they're already preparing for this shit, especially after the George Floyd protests, because they know what's coming, guys.
That's why I don't view Sabi, you're absolutely correct. And that's why RFK gets all the heat. Like, and you brought up a good point. I would listen to the whole stream. Where is he on Cop City? And even with all the missteps, Dr. West's campaign, it would be a net positive if he continued to show up at these events, if he continued to speak out against the Ukraine war in a militant way. That's the only thing that benefits us at the end of the day. Are you showing up to the? So I want him to, if he continue that, that's a net positive to me. He will stay in our good graces because that's most important. I also think the China thing is very worrisome. Like I've been studying this for the last 2-3 years. It's way worse than it's ever been. I got a China segment in the back where it's like every channel, like there's going to be a war within the next 4 years. I am convinced because I have never seen shit this unhinged. I'm talking about from Morning Joe, from Fox News, from Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, the Uniparty. Even the people who speak about the Uniparty support the Uniparty on China, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz.
Yep.
So, Sabby, you're absolutely right. The war on China, Cop City, and if you're not against the police state, and RFK is absolutely a police state bootlicker, fucking folded the second he had a hard question from the right wing about. I saw Keaton, I saw your coverage on it. I didn't get a chance to have my reaction to that, but that was one of the things where like you're incompatible with overthrowing the system because the police state is complicit with the system that we're in right now. It's also tied to imperialism. You have Israel that trains with the NYPD, the LAPD as well, and he's weak on Israel. And he also said he's gonna continue his policy of following Israel with no question. But now Israel, they bombed Syria. Israel, they want sanctions on Iran. So is RFK going to go along with the Iran policy, the Syria bombing?
No, that's the whole thing. People talk about how Israel is just one issue. First of all, even if it is just one issue, it's massive. But it's not just one issue. It has tentacles into other issues, Nick, like you were just talking about there. And so, look, RFK is not the movement leader we need. Maybe Cornel is more the movement leader we need. But that does not change the fact that when you're talking about an election and you're talking about how do we use the election to maximize pressure on the system, how do we use the election as a tool to disrupt the system, you have to be, I think, very, very precise about how you execute that. And that's all I'm saying. Like, I feel like Cornel was threat level here as a Green, and he's threat level here now as an independent. And so insofar as that decision made him less threatening in this specific instance, I think it was a bad move. If he wants to go out and, speak at anti-war rallies and labor strikes, that's all great, obviously. I mean, who would have a bad word to say about that?
Yeah.
But I think he's weakening himself as a candidate. So in this context, he is weakening himself by doing this.